back in April, you talked about protecting our sovereignty, our borders, and the taxpayer, of course. And some of the things that you talked about were introduced legislation that would help make the wall a reality without it being a cost to the American taxpayer. Can you talk about that a little bit, what the Border Wall Funding Act of 2017 means?
Yeah, what I introduced was legislation that would levy a 2% fee on transactions called remittances. That's where people that are in this country wire money to another country. And specifically, it would require a 2% fee on remittances sent from the U.S. to any country south of us. About a little over, around $54 billion a year are transferred through those remittances to South American countries, half of it to Mexico. So this fee would generate right at $1 billion a year for the United States, and it's dedicated to be applied for border security, specifically paying for the wall. And so we've introduced it. We're waiting on the administration to take a position on it. We feel pretty good that this is going to be, because this will not pay for all the cost of the wall, but it'll pay for a big chunk of it. We expect the president to come out with a plan to use about 3 or 4 different payment plan or pay-fors to take care of that wall, and we think when he does that this remittance fee will be part of that package, and then you'll see it start getting some debate on the House floor. Right now we're just waiting on the administration to decide what the package is going to look like.
You also introduced the American Sovereignty Restoration Act of 2017, and in that you talk about the United States ending its involvement with the United Nations because, quite honestly, the taxpayer should not be a part of a constitutional, be a part of an organization that infringes on constitutional rights and supports terrorists over what you say is our great ally of Israel. Can you talk about that and where that stands?
Yeah, one of my big aggravations with the United Nations is they're pretty useless. That when you talk about actually doing something productive, and that combined with the fact that when they do try to advance some policy, it's usually hostile to the United States. And I just don't think that most Americans think we should be paying for that organization. And when you look at the countries, we have, only major countries are in the UN, but obviously tiny countries are in there. And overwhelming percentages go in there and vote in a way that's hostile to the United States position. And I just don't know why we should be paying for that entity to function, for people just to come in there and badmouth us and work against us. The truth is, we don't have to have that organization for anything. If we want to enter into bilateral agreements with any country, we can do that. We don't have to be working as part of a large institution like that. So we pay, I can't remember the percentage, but I think we pay like a third of the cost of the United Nations, and I think it's a waste.
The National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2018 was just recently passed, and that is a bill that would help rebuild America's military, and you say in a press release that was just released earlier this week that it could help positively affect us locally, particularly with 1911 pistols to transfer them to the civilian marksmanship program. How does that affect us locally, and what exactly does that mean?
Well, there's a host of things that bill does. The National Defense Authorization Act is a legislation we pass once every year, and it basically tells the Pentagon and all the services what they can and can't do for the next year. And we authorized a lot of things that will help give our military service, our service members, new equipment, better equipment, modernize existing equipment, deal with their compensation, a whole host of things. We increased spending for the first time dramatically since Obama took office. He kept taking spending down. We authorized a significant increase in defense spending to help us get our military better equipped and prepared for war. But one of the things that we did include, and I got an amendment put in on these 1911s, And for your listeners that don't know, 1911s are pistols that were used by our military up until around the early 90s when they changed to a newer model pistol. So we still have right at 100,000 of these pistols. Now, we had more than that, and what we did initially was we offered them to any law enforcement organizations that wanted them at no cost, and other countries that are friendly countries that needed them, they could get them. But pretty much anybody that wanted to use them has gotten them. And the truth is, most law enforcement agencies didn't want them, and other countries didn't, because they wanted to do stuff too, just like we did. And so we still have these 100,000 pistols that are in storage at the Anniston Army Depot, and it's costing us, I can't remember how much, $50,000 or $60,000 a year to keep them stored. Well, as you know, the civilian marksmanship program in Anniston, that's what they do is they take old military weapons, they refurbish them and sell them to collectors. Been doing it for nearly 100 years. And then all the money they get from that goes into a trust fund that funds their mission, which is to help train civilians how to safely handle firearms. And they do a great job. Well, they employ, it's 200 or 300 people up in Anniston. I think that's right. It's a lot. They employ a lot of people to do this refurbishing of these weapons. And they want those pistols because there's a huge market of people who served in the military, and those were their pistols when they were in the military. That was what they used, and they want to buy one as a collector. And keep in mind, when they refurbish these things, sell them, they cost between $800 and $1,000. So you're not going to have crackheads getting them to go out and rob somebody. They basically just take them and put them in a case and show them off in their house. But the Democrats up here have been fighting it tooth and nail. I've gotten this language in the last two in National Defense Authorization Acts, and the Democrat-controlled Department of the Army has been doing delaying tactics as far as turning them over. So we put language in this bill that basically tells them they have to. They can't delay any longer. So that'd be great for not only jobs in Calhoun County area, but also for the collectors around America who have been wanting those things for a long time.
Well, speaking of Anniston and the 3rd District of Alabama locally, more than $1 million just released from the federal government to benefit several fire departments and volunteer fire departments and protection agencies, I should say, including Chillersburg, Coletta Valley, Pike Road, and Stillwaters. How do those funds affect positively? How do they affect these fire departments in protecting the citizens of the 3rd District of Alabama and these first responders?
Well, the truth is most of America's landmass is rural, and these rural communities they don't have professional fire and rescue departments. They're always volunteers, and they're doing good to scrape up the money to get a place to house their equipment, much less be able to buy any equipment. So the federal government recognizes that if we want people to be able to have the kind of first responder assets available that they need, we need to help. So providing these rural departments like we did in these grants money to buy fire trucks helps them be able to carry out their mission. Because keep in mind, these people aren't getting paid. They're volunteering out of the goodness of their heart, out of civic-mindedness, and I think it's the least we can do to help them have something to work with. So I'm always proud to see these rural departments get these new trucks, because if you've been out and visited many of them, a lot of them, they'll have fish fries and other kind of fundraisers to scrape up enough money to go out and buy 20-year-old fire trucks to be able to do their job. So when they get something brand new, it's awfully nice to see.
Jumping back to the bigger picture here for just a moment, Senator John McCain in the news recently with a brain tumor. Just talk about his relationship in the Senate, and although you were in the House, just talk about his presence, if you will, in Congress, and what the feeling is today on Capitol Hill.
Well, he's an institution up here. He's an ornery old cuss sometimes, but he's an institution, and none of us want to see him sick. We shocked to find out that it's brain cancer, but we wish the best for him. It's our hope that we'll have him back soon. When it comes to national security issues, there is nobody in the United States Senate that has more of an imprint on what comes out of the Senate when it comes to national security than John McCain. And in fact, it's kind of ironic that this happened right now because the National Defense Authorization Act, which we just talked about, passed out of the House last week. The Senate version of that was supposed to come to the floor of the Senate next week or the week after, and we don't know how this is going to impact that, given that he is the chief engineer of that product over on the side. So we'll all be praying for him and his family and hope this turns out good.
Last thing I have for you, today marks President Trump's 6th month in office. The last time that we spoke to you, I should say the time before last, when you were here in Sylacauga, it marked his 100th day in office. Talk about the past 6 months. Have you been pleased? Have you seen many changes? What would you like to see here coming up in the future as he embarks on his second half of the year?
Well, obviously I'm happy with the policies coming out of President Trump. His position on foreign policy has been just outstanding. I'm thrilled to have Justice Gorsuch on the court. A lot of the administrative policies he's made have been great. The people he's named to his cabinet are just outstanding. But I admit I'm very frustrated that we're not getting more of his agenda moved through the Congress, and hopefully we can get more of his people in the position. The biggest concern I've got about the Trump agenda being able to be advanced and his desires to be advanced is there are literally hundreds and hundreds, probably a couple thousand positions in various departments, whether it's the Ag Department, the Defense Department, Transportation Department, whatever, that have yet to be filled by the Trump administration. And it's not the Democrats that are holding it up. This is just they can't seem to get their people together and get them nominated or hired, and that's slowing us down. There's a lot of work to get done, so I hope that they'll correct that. But as far as the positions he's taken, the policies he's taken, I think he's done a great job.
Good deal. Congressman Mike Rogers, thank you so much for talking with us today, and best of luck. Thank you so much.